Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in the MLB, as well as my MLB season pass, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Wednesday, Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Kyle Gibson and Jordan Montgomery are your starters. Montgomery pitched well in his Diamondbacks debut, in his season debut. It was 6 innings of 1-run ball, so a quality start, but only the 3 strikeouts in that game. A little bit concerning to see him not miss a ton of bats. And St. Louis, while their numbers against lefties aren't great to start the season, they do have a pretty low strikeout rate as a team. So I think they can put the ball in play very often in this game against Montgomery, a starting pitcher they know quite a bit about as he pitched with them last year. And it was promising to see Kyle Gibson have a bounce back start after struggling a bit against the Marlins. He gave those 7 runs in that game. He was okay against the Diamondbacks, just 1 earned run more than a quality start, 6 innings, 4 runs. But a bounce back in the last game, a quality start against one of the toughest lineups in baseball against righties right now in the Milwaukee Brewers. 6 innings of 1 earned run ball. And to me, I see this game being a close one early on. I think even if Arizona has a lead through the 5-6 innings, St. Louis has the better bullpen, in my opinion, by a pretty significant margin. I mean, this is one of the better bullpens in baseball to start the year. So if it's a close game late, I like the Cardinals to win it at home especially. I'm going to go with the St. Louis Cardinals on the money line in the full game in this one. Next up, we see the New York Mets taking on the San Francisco Giants. Sean Manaea and Blake Snell are your starters. And we fade Blake Snell early in seasons. This is the way it goes on the rundown. We've done the last couple of years and done very well with it. And, Blake Snell, we backed him a ton in the second half of the season. He had one of the best halves of, any starting pitcher will have in baseball. And, of course, he went on to win the Cy Young. But early in seasons, he's just a very, very slow starter. Now, when you go back to 2021, his first season with the San Diego Padres, you look at Blake Snell's first 5 starts. The Padres win-loss record in those games was 2-3. So not miserable. He actually didn't pitch too poorly in those games, but still a losing record through the first 5. Then you look at 2022, the second year with San Diego. Blake Snell started the season, his first 8 starts, the Padres lost all 8 of those games. 0-8. He had, his control was off. He wasn't pitching deep into ball games, and San Diego went 0-8 in those first 8 games. Then you look at last year, in 2023, his final season as a Padre. Blake Snell, the Cy Young winner, Blake Snell, started the year, his first 5 starts, all losses for the San Diego Padres. So you look at those last 3 years combined, that's a 2-16 record for Blake Snell teams, which was the Padres, in his first few games of the season. Now you look at this season with the San Francisco Giants. His first game, an 8-1 blowout loss to the Washington Nationals. His next game, a 9-4 blowout loss to the Tampa Bay Rays. The next game, a 17-1 blowout loss to the Arizona Diamondbacks. So now that's 2-19 Blake Snell is in his first few games of the season. And until we see him win a game, I got to fade him in this spot. And we're getting actually really good prices against him usually in these games because he's an ace-level Cy Young winning starting pitcher. And Sean Manaea is not on the other side, but he's actually pitching a lot better. He had a rough outing against the Kansas City Royals back on April 13th, but bounced back in that last game against the Dodgers of all teams, and the Mets won that one in blowout fashion 9-4. The Mets are crushing lefties to start the season, so this is actually a pretty good matchup offensively. Like I said, Blake Snell eventually is going to get to the point where we see him pitch like a Cy Young starting pitcher. It could be this game, but I'm not banking on it. So give me the New York Mets on the money line. Next up, we see the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Los Angeles Angels. We're going to see Dean Kramer and Tyler Anderson as the projected starters. I mentioned last year Dean Kramer was one of the more profitable pitchers in baseball, and despite the Orioles, right now right in the mix in first place in the American League East, Kramer is actually, the Orioles are 1-3 in his first 4 games, and he's not pitched too well, especially recently. His last 9 2/3 innings, giving up 9 earned runs and 11 total runs with 3 bombs to go with it. So don't love the current form from Kramer. And, Tyler Anderson's pitching well overall this season for the Halos. A couple of starts ago struggled a bit. He only went like 4 2/3 innings, 4 1/3 innings against the Red Sox, but bounced back that last game against the Reds. 7 innings at Great American Ballpark, only 1 earned run given up. So I think Anderson pitches well, but, the Orioles have been a late inning team this year. A lot of rallies, some walk-off wins. So I'm willing to take the Angels in the first 5 innings. The Angels bullpen, not the best. And while the Orioles bullpen, I mentioned some regression concerns, it's still pitching really well in terms of the ERA and the xFIP right now, some of the best in baseball. So I'm going to take the Los Angeles Angels in the first 5 innings. I think they have the starting pitching advantage, not necessarily the bullpen advantage. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Cleveland Guardians. No official starter for Boston, but we should see Carlos Carrasco going for the Guardians. Mentioned the Red Sox, so many pitching injuries, so we're going to see a lot of these games where they don't have an official starter. They're forced to go with a spot starter, a bullpen game, and this could very well be one of those. And Carlos Carrasco pitched well against the Red Sox, pretty good. 5 2/3 innings, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts in the win for the Guardians. I think he pitches similarly in this game. He's not going to be perfect. He's going to give up his fair share of walks and base hits, but as long as he's keeping the ball on the ground, no home runs given up yet this season, I think he'll be, a guy that's going to give the Guardians some decent innings. We've seen a lot of those types of pitchers in recent years. Cal Quantrill a couple years ago was really, really, a pitch-to-contact guy, didn't really miss a lot of bats, wasn't the most flashy starting pitcher, but got the job done. I expect Carrasco to be that guy this season, so I'm going to go with the Guardians in this one on the money line. They're playing great baseball. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. No official starter for Milwaukee, but Freddie Peralta is listed on ESPN, so he could very well be the starter. And Quinn Priester should be going for the Buccos. And Priester struggled in that season debut against the Red Sox. It was 4 1/3 innings, 7 base hits, 3 home runs. It's a big concern for me. Facing now a Brewers lineup has got some of the best numbers in baseball against righties this year. And, Freddie Peralta, if he is a starter, we know he's been one of the better starters in the National League this season. Even if he doesn't go, I trust this Brewers bullpen, and I think the lineup gets the Priester, like I said early on. So I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Brewers in this one on the money line and run line in this one. Next up, it's the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Spencer Turnbull and Nick Lodolo are the projected starters. It's not often that I'm looking at an under at a Great American Ballpark game, but, Nick Lodolo, great form right now, .75 ERA. He's missing a lot of bats, 16 strikeouts in 12 innings, keeping the ball on the ground, and his control's been sharp. Two of the big concerns for him in his career is, the control, the walks, and the home runs as well, but he's been very, very solid. And Spencer Turnbull, a big surprise for the Phillies, 2-0 with that 1.23 ERA. He struggled a bit against the Pirates back on April 13th, but followed it up with a 7-inning shutout performance against Chicago, 1 base hit and 6 strikeouts to go with it. The Phillies are 4-0 in his first 4 games. I like the Phillies to win this game. In fact, Spencer Turnbull already faced this Reds lineup and went 5 innings of shutout baseball. I like the Phillies to win this game. Like I said, I think that they are the better team here, but I also like the under. Nick Lodolo pitched well against the Phillies last season. He had 2 starts against them. He actually, he didn't pitch much in last year in the regular season, but he had 2 starts back-to-back against the Phillies and when it combined 12 innings of 2 earned run, 18 strikeout baseball, and that's a good Phillies lineup last year. They crushed lefties, so good to see that from Lodolo. I'm going to go with the under and the Phillies on the money line in this one. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Washington Nationals. We're going to see Mr. Jake Irvin for Washington land a knack for the Dodgers. Jake Irvin just pitched against these Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, and the Nationals grabbed the outright W as a big-time underdog, and Irvin was excellent in that game. 6 innings of shutout baseball with 6 strikeouts, only 1 walk, and he's been in much better form his last 2 games now. He struggled a bit towards the beginning of the season. His last 2 games, 12 innings of 1 earned run ball combined with 11 strikeouts. So, while he's facing the same lineup in the same week, which is never an easy thing to do, but the same thing goes for Landon Knack, who faced the Nationals and lost that game. 5 innings, 2 earned runs, and a home run in a 2-0 Nationals victory. So for me, the same starting pitching matchup. We're getting a great price for Washington. They're playing solid baseball, a much better baseball than a lot of people expected going into the year. I think the value is certainly with the Nationals. Even though the Dodgers are the better team here, I'm going to go with Washington on the money line, getting a great plus money price. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Jack Flaherty and Tyler Alexander are your projected starters. Alexander's actually improving his game quite a bit. His last 2 games, a combined 11 1/3 innings, only 2 earned runs given up against some solid lineups in San Francisco and New York, and the New York Yankees. And, Alexander faces a Tigers team offensively, both against righties and lefties, have not been great to start the season. So I think Alexander pitches well, especially against his former team. And Flaherty, it's been inconsistent so far. His last game was excellent against Minnesota, but that's the Minnesota Twins, one of the weakest lineups in baseball, in my opinion. And we saw him give up 6 earned runs only a couple games ago against the Oakland Athletics of all teams. So, like I said, inconsistent numbers. His strikeout numbers are exactly where they want to be, but at least 1 home run given up in each of his first 4 games is a bit of a concern. To me, if this is a close game late, I trust the Tampa Bay Rays. Even though the Tigers' bullpen's off to the better start this year, I think Tampa Bay improves as the season goes along, and I actually think Alexander could be the better option to start this game. So give me the Rays on the money line at Tropicana Field. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the New York Yankees. Joe Boyle and Clark Schmidt are your projected starters. Joe Boyle, we mentioned the control issues. That's the big concern with his game is the walks in spring training and minor leagues and the regular season so far. 12 walks in 18 and 2/3 innings this year. You're facing a New York Yankees lineup that is number 1 in baseball in walk percentage against right-handed pitching so far. Not great at Yankee Stadium. A Yankees team that's looking to get going here offensively. They've been much better against righties than lefties. We saw them struggle against lefty and JP Sears at the beginning of this series, but I think they get to Boyle, especially if that control is off and he's, racking up the walks early in this game. His pitch count could go way up, and the A's bullpen, which has actually been pretty solid, but not in the if you don't want them to enter the game in the 4th, 5th inning if that's the case. And Clark Schmidt has pitched really well for the Yankees, a 3.15 ERA. He's coming off a great start against the rivals in the Tampa Bay Rays. The Yankees are 4-0 in his first 4 starts, and the A's have much better numbers against lefties offensively. I don't think they do much against Schmidt in this one. I'm going to go with the Yankees and lay the 1.5 runs on the run line. Next up at the Miami Marlins, taking on the Atlanta Braves. No official starter for the Fish, but Reynaldo Lopez should be going for Atlanta. Like I said, not a lot of information in this game with Miami, no official starter, but I'm going to lean towards the Braves here and lay the 1.5 runs. If this is a bullpen game or a spot starter situation for the Marlins, we know that bullpen has been one of the weakest to start the year in all of baseball. When you look at the expected numbers, you look at the ERA at 5.3. The Braves, they're just such a tough lineup. And we mentioned that they were, at the beginning of the year, struggling a bit against lefties, but they've improved there now. They're top 10 in both against righties, against lefties, and OPS, isolated power, you name it. The Braves are such a dangerous lineup this year. And Reynaldo Lopez has also been really solid on the mound. 2-0 with a .5 ERA. I got to go with the Braves and lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Minnesota Twins. Garrett Crochet and Joe Ryan are your projected starters. It's disappointing to see Garrett Crochet struggling the last couple of games. He had such a great start to the season through his first 3 starts. Great strikeout numbers. He still has great numbers, strikeout-wise at this point in the year. But these last 2 games, 5 earned runs against the Reds, 7 earned against the Phillies, 3 home runs in that game against Philadelphia, and they lost 5-0 and 7-0. It shows you this White Sox offense really the weakest lineup in baseball, and there's just not a lot of wiggle room here. Even if Crochet goes out and gives them a quality start, 6 innings, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts, it's probably not going to be enough in this game. The Twins, Joe Ryan's pitching well this year. The Twins have a great bullpen, and the White Sox lineup is just, they've been shut out like 7-8 times this year so far. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins and lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Chicago Cubs. We see Spencer Arrighetti and Jameson Taillon as the projected starters. Arrighetti, I'm not sure if he's major league ready right now. His first game, we saw him give up 7 earned runs to the Royals. The last game, only 4 innings of work against the Braves. It wasn't miserable. It's still 2 runs given up in a 6-1 loss. And we know the Astros bullpen has really struggled this year with that ERA above 5. I think the Cubs have the big advantage in the bullpen. And, the lineup, the Astros lineup has been fine this year. It's, the pitching has really been the reason why they haven't had a slow start to the season. But Taillon pitched well in that season debut, 5 innings of 1-run ball. I think he's good enough here for the Cubs to grab the W. Not my favorite game on the board, but I'm going to lean with the Cubs on the money line. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Kansas City Royals. Yariel Rodriguez and Alec Marsh are your starters. Rodriguez pitching really well so far, but he doesn't really pitch deep into ball games. He relies a lot on strikeouts, but sometimes the control can be off, and the pitch count can go, way up early in games. And the Blue Jays bullpen, I think, has a lot of talent, but there are a lot of guys, like I mentioned, that didn't get to pitch in spring training or very limited. They had some injuries, guys like Swanson and Romano, who aren't the sharpest to start the year. You can tell in their first few outings out of the bullpen. I think eventually they'll be very, very strong relieving options for the Blue Jays. But if Rodriguez isn't able to go deep into this game, I worry about that. The Royals have a very strong lineup, especially at Kauffman Stadium. They do a lot of damage against right-handed pitching, and Marsh has been really solid. Surprise. I expect him to be the weakest link in this Royals rotation, but he's 3-0 with a 3.22 ERA. He's just coming off a start against the Orioles, 5 2/3 innings of shutout baseball with 6 strikeouts. And the Royals, he's 3-0, but the Royals are 4-0 in his first 4 starts. So I'm going to go with Kansas City in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Texas Rangers. Bryce Miller and John Gray are your starters. John Gray, his last appearance actually came out of the bullpen. It was a relief appearance against the Atlanta Braves, an inning and 2/3. It was 4 strikeouts, no hits, no walks, no runs. It was actually, his best performance so far this year. You wonder if something like that, matched with the previous 2 outings where he went a combined 11 innings of 2-run ball, tells you after a slow start to the season, John Gray is exactly where he needs to be. And, he's going to be a big piece in this Rangers rotation. I think he pitches well in this game. And, Bryce Miller has also been solid on the other side for Seattle. His last 3 starts, he's gone 6 innings plus. So 3 quality starts, only 1 earned run combined in those games. His strikeout numbers are there, and he's actually facing tough lineups. The Brewers, the Cubs, and the Reds, 3 teams are top 15 in team OPS against righties to start the season. So it's not going to get any easier against the Rangers on the road, but I think Miller is well equipped for this game. I like the under in this Mariners-Rangers matchup. Even though that Rangers bullpen isn't the best, Seattle's bullpen's one of the better ones in baseball, and I think we get under this total. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the Colorado Rockies, a final game we're going to talk about for the Wednesday card of Major League Baseball. It's going to be Matt Waldron for San Diego, no official starter for the home team. Waldron doesn't have a lot of Major League experience. He's got about 60 innings under his belt combined from this year and last year, so no games at Coors Field. That's a little bit of a concern. Waldron has pitched okay for San Diego this year, but that ERA is still just below 5. And, that last game against the Blue Jays is the big reason why that ERA jumped up quite a bit. It was 4 2/3 innings, 7 base hits, and 5 earned runs. So not in great form going into your first career start at Coors Field. Not a great place to be usually for pitchers, starting pitchers, especially. And I think the Rockies, I mentioned, while it's been a really bad start to the year, they also haven't played a ton of home games. So, majority of their games have been on the road. We know Colorado's much better at Coors Field, and I think we're going to get some value spots with this team in Coors Field games like this one. I'm going to go with the Colorado Rockies in this one, take a shot with them on the money line. We'll see who their official starter is, but right now I'm leaning towards Colorado. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.